Yeah, we have
Yeah.
some wild stories like people finding each other on stage. They couldn't discover like people otherwise. The first users that came onto the platform actually knew us. They were willing to give us information. That was really important because I think like if you have really good inputs and then you will get a good outputs. You are in a better shape if you're focusing on the vertical and you kind of own it end to end. Like starting from like understanding the
Mm.
problem, serving the market.
Welcome to Artificial Insights, the podcast where we learn to build AI businesses by interviewing innovators and leaders in AI. I'm your host, Daniel Maneri, and today I'm joined by Tair Asim. Tair has built and sold a company, and I found him through an innovative product he built over a year ago that took natural language interviews when you signed on and matched other people with you. And I found him through that tool when I was looking for people to work with on AI. And so I'm excited to finally interview him. Today, he works at a company that does AI video editing and specifically trains their own models and focuses on lip syncing, though there are bigger plans. Tair, could you introduce yourself and what you do to our audience?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Kazakhstan. I spent my like childhood there, and then I immigrated to Finland. So I was studying like
Oh.
business, and that was like super boring. Like I started programming like at 14, I think. Yeah, my dad he just sent me like to some C++ courses or C courses, and that was like it didn't click initially. I started doing like basic Pascal and all of that stuff, and then I kind of got into like programming. But I went to business school because that was like popular at the time. Nobody was do like IT at the time. Like it wasn't popular. Like it was just like really low level things. So yeah, I dropped out like I think on the third year, and then moved to Finland. Like studied CS there, computer science and engineering. Started working pretty early. Like I tried the United States. I had some issues with business. I tried Australia and some other places. Yeah, I mean, Finland just discovered, didn't know anything about that. But yeah, I think that was pretty good actually. Finland was raising in the time, like in terms of like technology, because of like mobile sector, like telecom sector, and then I joined like Nokia early on. Like I was still at college, so and I started like doing some like subcontracting in Nokia, and eventually like spent 6 years there. Yeah, it was mostly like developer tools, infrastructure, like business infrastructure, like helping teams to ship like fast at scale. It was pretty fun, like, really good experience. Then did some consulting and mostly like enterprises. And then what we found actually that was pretty interesting. We were doing like the same kind of solutions again and again. And that was basically something around like developer collaboration, which was like GitHub
Hmm.
was just getting like popular. GitLab I think was just released. And then we were doing a bunch of similar tools for like different enterprises. And then, hey, we said, maybe this is like a perfect idea. Let's just like spin off and make a startup. So like I became a CEO. I was running a company called Devio for about 3 years. So we were like mostly selling on premises and a bit of cloud for this collaboration platform. I think I left after 3 years, and then it was acquired by Perforce. Perforce like is a big company. They were doing like version control systems before Git
Hmm.
at Google and that kind of company. So yeah, I think they acquired it to try to compete with GitLab and GitHub, but it
Hmm.
didn't work out. So yeah, that was beginning of my startup journey. Yeah, and after that, I started my own startup, which was called Darkbait. So that was basically GitHub Actions before GitHub Actions was there, which is more like Zapier for software delivery, like integrations, continuous delivery, and that sort of thing. And you could basically do everything from Slack. So imagine you had a chatbot, you can like deploy your software, like see who can deploy it or not. So it's basically all about workflows and deployments. That didn't go very well. Like it flopped after 3 years. Yeah, I think we were not focused. We were trying to capture like every developer market. We didn't really go
Hmm.
in depth, and we were just like scratching the surface of each developer market. So we had some paying customers. We raised some funds. Eventually, I had to like lay off people, close the company. Yeah, and then there was like a burnout like
Yeah, after that.
period for me. Yeah, so yeah, that was my kind of startup journey, coming all the way from like big enterprises, leading teams up to 40 people, etc. Mostly being in DevOps and infrastructure, and then going to the product side of things, especially with last time, because like you're a founder, you have to do everything like product, marketing, dev, well, and That was exciting. I mean, that was the biggest learning for me.
Just being involved in all those roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I moved all the way from like doing DevOps engineering to leading teams like tech lead, even like training teams, mostly developer tools, version control systems. And then eventually I went to kind of products and kind of building products into the applications, that sort of thing. That was kind of the beginning of my journey. And then after that, I was kind of burned out. I took some break, came back, and I started working with companies in the US and mostly like helping them with their products and engineering teams.
Okay. So one of the questions that I think is on everybody's mind with a podcast like this is,
Yeah.
are you an AI?
In AI, probably we are all a bit of like AI. I'm not sure. That's a very good question. Like I keep thinking about that, like who we really are, you know? But yeah, I'm not an AI.
Not at the moment.
Yes.
I had one professor I interviewed. He said that he's not an AI, but he's about to be because they're going to turn him into an AI assistant for his own class. But
That's like, yeah, that's great.
I wanted to interview you in particular because I interacted with a project that you led using AI, which I've referenced to multiple people at this point, actually, which was called Sage
Mhm.
through a business called buildspace. And essentially, I was interested in it because it was a matchmaking service between people with interests that you could describe and it would describe back to you. And it just seemed like such an awesome way to network. And
Yeah.
that was just phenomenal to me that I could find people in groups of thousands and it would just pull them out. I found you through it actually. And that was
Yeah.
a lot of fun to see like, you're
Think
working on this.
now I remember we messaged each other probably on Sage. Yeah, now I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about that, your journey into it, what brought it up, and then what you think made it successful.
Yeah, it's actually a long story because that story is part of Buildspace and my journey there. So initially, I was like, I think I got into blockchain like early on, like not early, but like a few years ago. And I was just exploring, like I wanted to learn tooling, and I found like Farza,
Hmm.
was a founder and CEO of Buildspace, and he was giving these courses on Twitch, and they were like so like completely different, basically what I would usually do, like, you know, take some courses. They were more interactive, like it was actually fun, like learning things. And that's how I find Build Space. And then we started chatting and I joined Build Space. Basically, I was probably like third engineer there. And we were building this platform for builders, right? For education content, mostly around blockchain. We had like pretty solid community at the time. So that was kind of the beginning of that. And then we tried a bunch of different products and we couldn't really find anything. I think we tried like all sorts of things. There was like some sort of like Reddit-like social platform where you would be like compensated if you were building on our platform, like if you were building some projects. So we had some bounties and some funding. We did like a lot of like partnerships with the free companies, the rooms. I think Build the Rooms was pretty cool, like where you actually get into the same space and you kind of build together. There was like music there, like low high girl kind of thing. So we tried all of these experiments, nothing really stuck. And then a Nice and Weekends program, which is basically online program for builders just to work on their own ideas. It was just like a side project. So it was just an idea. And it actually started like kicking off. And then it was pretty good, like starting from season one. I remember maybe there were like 100 people, then 500,000. So yeah. And then what happened actually, we kind of pivoted from being like a product led company to more like media and content company. So I had to leave basically, and we chatted as far as basically, yeah, maybe like there's not a lot of product work here.
So you actually had to leave the company before you built the product that I met you through.
Absolutely, yeah. Because we tried a bunch of things. It wasn't just me. I think we had like 4 people who were on the product side who left. So that, you know, the guys can focus on like nights and weekends program. It was like IRL, like mostly media and content. So yeah, I took some time off. I worked with some other companies, also in blockchain, like some AI companies. And then I remember Faza messaged me back, hey, well, I was still in the community. We had really good relations. I was joining like nights and weekends, like helping to organize things, IRL events as well. And then he said like, okay, I think we need to build a product. We are ready. The brand is strong. People are basically living after the program. They don't have a place to like stay and like be in touch. And there was, I think the timing was good, like with AI tooling as well. Like you could do like RAG, you could do like all of these like and like chat-based applications. So yeah, that's when I rejoined basically after maybe 1.5 years. So it was kind of
Mhm.
interesting.
That's
Yeah, so
cool.
Sage is basically the idea was that we have this community. First, we wanted to bring them together. And like, well, you can find it right now. You are either on like LinkedIn or some Facebook or some other social networks, which was really different. It wasn't really for builders. Like there was a lot of activity in Twitter that was like so noisy. And we thought it would be actually nice if you can like discover other people that have like kind of same values, like same kind of goals, and just connect and chat and see what happens. I think that was pretty good. It took off, I think, because we also ran like entire nights and weekends applications through Sage. So that's how we
Yeah.
got the initial set of users. Yeah, I mean, we can chat about that. I think that was a really good experience. We were like 3 people working on that
Yeah. Yeah. I was
initially. Yeah.
actually surprised that there were so few people building something that was used by so many thousands of people that seemed to
Yeah.
work really well.
Yeah. I don't think it would have worked if we didn't have such a strong brand. And like the
Mm.
first like set of users, like the first users that came onto the platform actually knew us. They were willing to give us information, like, fill out the profile because that was really important. Because I think like if you have really good inputs and you do like AI RAG based applications, then you will get good outputs. And that was really important for us. And for us to spend a lot of time actually with prompt engineering and like making sure that we have the right voice because
Mm.
it had to like speak in our voice with our brand. And then, yeah, I think UI part of that was also interesting. Like the whole like UX around that was interesting too.
Yeah. Tell me about
So
that part too, because it was interacted with like a chat application, but responded like a search application. So tell me what made that
yes.
interesting.
So the interesting part is like the whole onboarding experience where you basically had to chat with Sage and tell about yourself in like very natural way instead of like filling up some forms. And I think that was pretty cool. I think people loved that. So that was one thing. And then another thing, everything was basically AI based, right? So we didn't really do like any like search queries, like, that you would usually do like an application. So it was really spontaneous. You wouldn't know actually who you would find. And that was interesting. Obviously there were some things like location based, but most of the things were like really spontaneous. And that was so cool.
How did that work then if it wasn't just look up in this database by location?
Yeah, so it's mostly like we were basically embedding all of these profiles, but our search
Mm.
like query wasn't really, so they were like filters. We wouldn't say like, hey, like extract some filters and like search by location and search by age group or so, we didn't have that. So it was basically anything that was related to your query, taken right from embeddings. Now,
Hmm.
obviously, like with RAG, we were able and like the whole like onboarding that we had where we collect we ask questions about the person, we could actually fit in that back into the queries, like give some context, and I think that worked pretty well. So it wasn't structured, because we did something similar before where you could like discover builders when we were doing like Web3. And that was like more like LinkedIn. Like you pick like category, you pick like search results. So it was very structured.
I really enjoyed the natural language search aspect where it was closer to, I want to know who is working on podcasts. And then I didn't have to say, yes, I'm a podcast creator necessarily on a checkbox, but because I talked about what my project is, people are going to find me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
some wild stories like people finding each other on Sage. They couldn't discover like people otherwise. Like, yeah, there were some interesting stories.
What's one you remember right now?
So one story was I met this guy like at IRL here in SF, and he was basically like telling me the story about a person like in Milan. I think he was in AC Milan, like a goalkeeper, like influencer, influential followers, and he was trying to like build some AI tooling around his brand and couldn't find anyone. He tried like a bunch of people, like cold calling, like emailing. Then he joined Sage. He asked like, okay, who can help me? I'm building this, and he found another person like very technical who was actually in Milan in the same neighborhood. They got together. It started like I think the founded a company that's basically from his words, and they came together to our relevance. So there's like all of these kind of stories where you discover people. Sometimes people would go to some place like I think Lithuania was one, and then they couldn't find like people that are like having the same mindset like builders like from the community. They would just go to Sage and look up and like meet. And that was like really exciting to see. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah,
that almost because it's less structured, it's a lot more spontaneous. It's a lot more like the connection feels more personal.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like really corporate, right? It was all about like, what's your builder profile? What you have built, like what excites you? What are some ideas that you want to work on like full time? So, and I think that connected people in.
The aspect of what do you talk about with it becomes how you find those people too. But on LinkedIn, I couldn't find someone necessarily that same way because I don't know what their interests are. I know what their employer is. So I guess how do you see that functionality unlocked by the way we do AI now?
Yeah. It's a good question. I know that. I have to think about that. Yeah. I think just like the nature of how you interact with the system is so different right now. Instead of like clicking buttons and like doing some filters, you actually can talk. And there's a model that it would understand, it will find something relevant. And that changes the interface, right? I think it's more kind of natural as well, where you can like chat with a bot, for example. So that's kind of one interesting aspect of that. So you don't really give precise filters or information that you want to get, rather the system suggests you. So that's interesting.
Is there anything else that you've discovered about AI or using AI on your journey that just you really didn't expect when you started?
Yeah. So I think first thing that I already told that I learned while building Sage is that it's really important like to get very good inputs to have like very good output. So, and that's why we were asking like a bunch of information and try to make it user friendly, that it's like more interactive. And that actually, I think it has helped us to produce really good results. So that's kind of one thing. Another thing that is interesting is like the whole user interface, like paradigm, how that changes with AI. Because like we're used to like all of those buttons and things without waiting things, right? Especially like if you like some SaaS application, everything is like comes immediately to the screen. But now actually it's a bit different. You're waiting for some data to be like sent back to you. So there is some kind of reasoning, you know, there is some kind of completion, and that's I think that's a new way of like interacting with the applications. And people are slowly getting used to that. So that's kind of the second thing. So yeah, also like what I see, a lot of things are being changed right now in terms of moving from like SaaS to AI, right? People like, especially consumer market, people are like getting used to the terms like usage based, you
Mm.
know,
Even pricing
or
models then.
pricing models. What is generation? They have to wait for some things to come back. People are getting used to that. Previously it was just like cloud computing, and you think about like, okay, how many queries do I need to do this query or so this result or generate video or make an image? And that kind of changes how basically builders are, creating applications right now and like creating
Mm.
new user interfaces for that. It's just some really interesting observations that I had recently.
Mm. It sounds to me like interacting with the bot in a natural way can lead to getting better quality input. Is that something that you've seen?
So interacting with the bot can lead to better quality.
So rather than filling out a form, actually having the conversation allows me to give better quality data to the system.
No, I don't think so. I think it depends on what you're building for. Like, for example, I was building like chatbot, just a side project where I wanted to get like all my personal finances information from the bank. Yeah. And that's where you want to be really accurate. You can't allow like any hallucinations. And, I mean, you have to be really precise. The way how we are building that is probably very different than what we did from like for Sage on the kind of social network and social interaction. So I think it really depends like what you're building for. But there are ways to kind of validate that you're getting like good results, and there are ways to do that. So yeah, I think it depends on the sector.
I think that makes sense. You mentioned that you're working in the video vertical now. And
Yeah.
what are you doing in that space and how is that different?
Yeah, right. So I recently joined Sync, I think like 5 months ago. They have a really interesting story also like buildspace. alumni from like a school. So we are basically doing lip sync models, but trying to kind of make it simple to edit humans in video. And we started with lip syncing, right? And you probably have seen like a bunch of content on socials where you can repurpose video, you can change the audio, for example, translate that, like dub that. So there are really like many use cases. We are also like super early. I think the team started like over a year ago now, like less than a year ago. So yeah, I've joined Sync. I'm heading product team, and I'm actually right now at the offices. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it has been exciting. Like this is a new space for me. Like the whole like video editing space is new for me because like my background is basically coming from dev tools and like some community things, productivity things. So this is so exciting.
And how is it different from what you've done before?
Yeah, how is it different? First of all, is we are training our own models. Like we have like ML research team. So we have our own models where we like train, like we have like our own APIs to actually do these like edits and lip syncing. And that was so different because before that, I was mainly like interacting with something like, OpenAI or some other like APIs that are available. And like the way that we think about things is a bit different as well. Like how do we like collaborate? How do we like basically interact with our own models and make it more efficient and run it on our infrastructure? And that's like a really challenging problem
Yeah.
that we're seeing right now. So that's one. Another thing is just like video is just like challenging because of the things that you have to upload, like just in terms of like file sizes. And then the experience itself, like, because we are doing it in the browser and like building a very simple like video editing platform is really complicated, right? So at the same time, trying to make it simple. So yeah, it's pretty different from what I was saying before. But we still have like developers using our platform. So you probably like if you see some like companies, I wouldn't tell the names, like they're doing some lip syncing, they have some workflows, but in the back end they actually use sometimes our APIs or some other APIs. So I think we are like maybe half split now between developers using free APIs and then the other part is basically creators using like our own like editing experience in the browser.
That's a neat business model then, providing both API and front end services, the actual product usage.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've seen other companies are doing. You build well, there are also like wrappers where you basically interact with APIs, but then if you're like training your own on models, then you have like, you probably first focus on like platform to make it reliable. And then you provide it to developers. You see like what's happening in the market, like what people are building with that, and then just go and build something better probably. Like OpenAI is a good example, right? With like providing APIs, building like a consumer applications like ChatGPT and that sort of thing. So, and now they have some desktop experiences too.
What are the challenges of doing video versus text?
Yeah. Video versus text. Interesting. Well, first it's just like what's kind of the user interface to edit video. I think that's more complicated than just like editing text. So that's kind of one thing. And I think just the amount of data that we have to process and train on, that's also pretty challenging. So also there are no like really good models that you can use right now. There are for text, like summarization stuff. But then for videos, I think the market is much smaller there. So especially like lip syncing. So there are some open source projects, but I mean, if you want to get like really good quality, there are probably not that many.
Yeah, that would be a huge difference because training your own like ChatGPT costs way too much money for most people, and the benefit is very small. But it sounds like that is a core innovation for you guys at Sync.
Yeah, that's right. I think like just owning our own like models and training them and kind of going like pretty much end to end in a like certain vertical because we're just focusing on like lip syncing on lips right now. I think that's advantageous. So absolutely. Yeah.
But so focusing on a niche within that first is an advantage as well.
Yeah, it's kind of going like into kind of vertical because like I think like if you're let's say you are like training some models and you're providing like infrastructure, it's actually very easy to outcompete you with like by some bigger companies, but just using like the same like general purpose model. And then the same way, if you're like at the top of the stack where you have some wrappers, you're interacting with APIs, you're probably good like at selling that. Then it's also quite easy to outcompete you. Like For
Mm.
example, like OpenAI can just release something and, and that's it. So I think it's like you are in a better shape if you're focusing on the vertical and you kind of own it end to end. Like starting from like understanding the
Mm.
problem, serving the market, having like great user experience, going like in depth and kind of owning models and training them. So I think that's like a much better position. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I mentioned to you before at the beginning when we started talking, it felt like there was a bunch of things that came out that were these quick little, PDF with ChatGPT. And as soon as they innovate in one tiny dimension, the whole business evaporates.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
that vertical integration strategy sounds like if you could nail it, that sounds great.
Yeah, there are also like some like maybe boring businesses, like have some like some complexity, a lot of humans involved. If you have
Mm.
insight in certain like problem, you can do a lot. Like, you can build a business pretty easily. So,
Is there one that is on top of mind for you that you would build one if you started a company again?
well, for me, it was always dev tooling, right? I'm doing a product right now. I'm also building, and I'm thinking like, okay, where I spend time every day, is there anything that I can automate with AI agents? And like one
Mm.
simple thing, for example, I'm spending a bunch of time in Linear. Like this is
Yeah.
basically issue tracking system, right? And I have to go for a bunch of projects right now, figure out like what's on target, what's not, where we at right now. What if I could just query that? Like I could query that with natural language. It would give me some graphs and tell me like as a you know running product, some key indicators for me. And there are, you can take any dimension. It could be, error logging on infrastructure. It could be whatever tools you're using and just build in that vertical. I think that's kind of exciting. Basically, I love when
Mm.
you're building it for yourself, like kind of solving your own problems, because then you have the best insight. You are the customer and you know what to build, and that's the best way to do it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the questions I like to ask is what got you into AI? Was it a journey like that where you start solving your own problems?
yeah, I'm actually thinking the first application I built was for our own problem. So basically, we were
Mm.
doing at buildspace, we were doing customer interviews for everything. We had a bunch of product experiments, and we would do customer interviews, and we would have like Farzan, who is a CEO founder, he would want to read them as well. And we had like a bunch of notes, and we didn't want to send them like the bunch of words. We wanted to do some just like some summaries, and even for ourselves. So our first like side project, I remember I was doing with another guy from buildspace. It was just like a side project. Can we just summarize that? Can you, record that, summarize that? And that's kind of was my first interaction. I think that the summarization. So yeah, I think that was the own problem. The second problem I was trying to solve was basically for myself. Like I'm pretty bad, like in managing my personal finances. Like I have like a bunch of different accounts and I wanted just to like create that from like a chat bot. So I had this Telegram bot and I was like asking questions like, okay, how I'm doing, like where I'm spending on food or like something else. And that they didn't work well. It was like very accurate. So I basically gave up on that. So yeah, these were two things that I was building just like out of curiosity for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like starting a project. And if it doesn't work out, you do something else. There's no problem with that.
Yeah. I think it's also like, what's your intention? Like, are you really building company? Are you just trying to learn and you're just curious? Like for me, it was also always learning. I'm just curious in things. I think you're also like speeding up the process of learning by just building things on the side. And then whenever you work in the company, then you're just having like more skills and more experience because you know how things are done and what are the best tooling, what's the latest tooling. And so
What advice would you give someone who wants to get into it but doesn't know where to start?
yeah. Well, it's always like just like find something that's exciting for you. Like maybe it's a problem, maybe it's something that you don't like doing, maybe something like boring that you just want to automate. And just start from there. I think like because if that excites you, you probably won't give up. And it's really easy right now to build things, like even like with things like cloud and ChatGPT. You don't even need to know how to program. There are also like code generators right now. So it's just like, yeah, okay, you can solve it for yourself. Probably works out well, and then you can maybe help your friends as well who have the same problem. So if you have a problem, it's most probably some other people have the same problems, and you can find those
Mm.
people.
Yeah, I like starting with things that are exciting because often I find the hardest part is just getting through that initial hump. How can I do this? Should I do this? But if it's exciting, then I'll go for it.
Yeah, is it fun? Like, I don't know, like, if you're starting with like, "Hey, I wanna build company," then it's probably a bit different. It's quite different actually.
And one of the things you said earlier that I feel like is really interesting from a how to build a business perspective is that Sage worked at buildspace because of the brand of buildspace. And even though it was very innovative and it worked really, really well, it wasn't just the product in isolation that made it work. What do you see as that connection between the two, the brand and the product?
Yeah, I think especially like in this market, when you build something like around communities, it's very hard to get early users. Especially like if you want to get a bunch of users fast, and you need at least a number of profiles so that it actually makes sense. It's almost like a marketplace, a double-sided market where you need to have like one good profiles, but then you need to have other people to be able to find them and actually have a value there. So, and that helped us a lot, like, because the first users that got on Sage were actually new build space and they were eager to like try it out, give feedback, even fill up those questions that we were asking. We made it easier eventually because like initially, I think our onboarding experience was pretty complex. Like it wasn't complex, but it was asking like a lot of questions. And then we made it like super easy. So, but then we already had like the first set of users and people could just go and try and see, hey, I can find like, really nice builders here. These are really like decent people that I can interact with and I will find value.
The brand gave you early users and people who are willing to put up with something that might not be completely polished.
Yeah, that's right. I think because I mean, even before I joined, they had like really early version that they were just showing like with the like terminal window or something. So one way to basically work around that, and I think that's probably one of the advices, is that you can just target one niche. Like if you have like, I know, podcasters in New York doing something for builders, I don't know, something like that. Then it's much easier actually to build a community and build product around that and then kind of expand from there. So yeah, it's more fun, right? I mean, because you know these people, you can connect to them. It's much easier to talk to them rather than just like any other like random person.
Yeah, I like that point actually. It as a host of a podcast, the more that I connect with someone, the easier it is to have a conversation. And
Yeah.
that makes it more fun for everybody else too. But I wanted to connect that too to what you said about focus as a business. And I think you said that the DevOps, the developer tools company you did, had troubles with focus. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
companies have troubles with focus. What do you see as the antidote to that? Do everything, but nothing deep.
Well, yeah, that's the part. And I think that's kind of one of the mistakes that like first time founders are doing. And I was like probably first, second time founder doing that as well. It just comes with practice because once you are focused, everything just gets easier. Finding your first users, marketing, distribution. Every morning I would ask myself like, okay, what's that A plus? What's the main thing that I want to accomplish today? It could be just one thing. Like if I've done that, that's I mean, my day is good. Like anything else I do is just a bonus. And that helps me a lot. Like just, staying focused. But then the question is how do you prioritize the things? Like how do you know what to work on? And that's super challenging.
I find it
So
challenging.
yeah, absolutely.
Would you go back to serving a customer that excites you?
Yeah, so that's one thing. It should be something exciting. I don't think I would be able to work on something that I'm not excited about, and it's just like, business or, some financial aspect. So that's one thing. Another thing, I usually look at like people that I would love to hang out with, like if it's a customer, would I actually love to talk to that person and try to
Mm.
understand their problems and solve them? Probably that's not going to be every market, right? It's going to be like specific certain like niches. So that's another way to look at it.
Mm.
Because a lot of time you just talk to users, well, especially in the early days, trying to understand like what are their problems and solve them. And you want to enjoy that process. So yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You're going to spend a lot of time with these people.
Without actually, trying to sell, because usually people are trying to sell on page, but it's just like a conversation, like a casual conversation, like, you know, and figuring out the problems, not asking for solutions, and then just going back like into a cave and build the solution. So, test it out, come back. He's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And as someone who is a builder more than I am a salesperson, I really don't like selling and pitching. I like the let's get to know each other and then solve problems together.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you are not with like even though we're all selling all the time, but when you're actually excited about the problem, you're not actually selling. You just like share the same problem, you know? And yeah, and that's just a common ground.
I wanted to give you some space as well to share anything that you want to share about what you're working on now and what's exciting to you now.
So one thing that particularly I'm excited about is next thing that we're trying to build like a bit different like experience around video editing, especially when you want to do portions of the video. So imagine you just record once and you can use it indefinitely. And we have like all kinds of use cases. Already, like people are asking about, hey, I will modify just like 10 seconds at the beginning and, maybe customize my video to like so and so on. So that's super interesting because how you can build that in a simple fashion in the browser. So that's kind of one thing. Another thing will like particularly right around sync. We see like a bunch of different workflows, but sometimes you want to like you have to go to another platform. Let's say you want to generate voice like in 11 Labs, right? So something cool that I think will be next for us is how we can do that all within sync without actually leaving the platform. So you can get much faster to the result. So that's also interesting. Yeah. This is kind of product side of things, I believe. We also like hiring. We have 14 people right now, looking for talent like engineering, ML, designers. So yeah.
That's an exciting stage.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, there's actually more demand that we can fulfill. Like we have like a pipeline of people, and yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty. Well, we're trying to still like learn things, so we're pretty early there. Actually, like sales and marketing as well.
It's exciting to me when a company can't keep up with the demand for its product. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's normal. I mean, things are breaking. Initially, it's just like moving fast, and then you try to break less things, and while keeping the same like speed.
Yeah. And then the other part you mentioned was bringing in more workflows, taking that vertical integration approach to a bigger, wider approach as well. That is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. How can people connect with you if they would like to?
I'm on X, so x.com, Tair, Tair. I think that's the best way to connect with me. Yeah.
I started this podcast because I wanted to stand at the gate of businesses using AI and see what separated hype from lasting impact. Back when cities had walls, you had to go into the city to do business at the market. So, if you wanted to talk to someone, you waited by the gate until they came in or came out. Do that enough times and you could talk to everyone. That's what I want to do. Stand at the gate of people doing business with AI and talk to them, see what they do and why they do it. If you know someone that's making an impact in the world of AI, would you connect them with me? You can find me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at daniel@manary.house. That's Daniel at MANARY.HAUS. Thanks for listening.